Bojo, anin, dinemaganitak, ni Gaani aki, Inini, ndigo, kinyo, dotem, saging donji. Let me first of all thank all of you that are sharing your sacred time to eat. I want to thank Steve for giving me this opportunity here this morning, or this afternoon now. It is said in the lodges of our people that we've reached a tipping point. Earth changes are already in effect, and serious changes must take place if we are to create a sustainable world. There is nothing more important at this time than to address climate change. Today, much of our planning should consider preparing for these changes that are inevitable. This is our first challenge. Then laying down a foundation for the future in becoming better stewards of the land. We have entered into a time of great change and opportunity. As Indigenous peoples, we can offer a big part of the solution to climate change, adding our contribution to the various shared approaches that can lead to a well-defined vision. The issue of climate change gives us an opportunity for Indigenous people to take their rightful place in their homeland. As a people, we can offer a leadership that is grounded in values and teachings that connect us to the spirit and to the land. With our leadership comes duties and responsibilities. We need to share with all our brothers and sisters who have arrived on our homeland why we love the land so much, and hope that they will join us in taking better care of the land. The leadership of our grandmothers is significant. Our women have always carried out a specific role. They act as the voice of the sacredness of water. They are in constant ceremony with songs, words of gratitude for this element of life. In order to have life, one has to have good, clean water. This is not our reality today. We have all been contaminated by the poisons that have been put into the land and the water. This has led to contaminated blood, which leads directly to many of the sicknesses we face today. What the old people warned us about is so very true. What you do to the land, you do to yourself. Working in alliance with nature and her natural laws is the key to ensuring our survival. Mother Earth, the root of all life, like all living beings, is a living entity with her own spirit. We need to develop a deeper, more respectful and sacred relationship with her. In this time of change and opportunity, we must position ourselves in the forefront of a movement that leads us back to the original instructions we were all given in living out our humanness. These original instructions come with well-defined duties and responsibilities. We all have the universal responsibility to be true caretakers and true stewards of the land. We have failed miserably in this regard, which has resulted in climate change. As we reflect on the current issue of climate change, we must be prepared to understand the root of this reality. The reason why we have climate change is because we have broken natural law. What is natural law? And how can we find our balance again? There's no doubt about how much man has evolved to create so much comfort that we are all enjoying today. Yet, at what expense to the earth? As much as there have been advancements in this regard, we have not evolved morally and ethically. This is the crisis of our time. We have left our spirit behind, our spirit that defines our true identity and destiny as human beings, which is to be stewards of the land. We need to understand this part of our nature, that deep part of us that we refer to as the spirit. Indigenous peoples have always lived believing in the power of the spirit. As a peoples, we have survived in our homeland for many, many thousands of years, having a respectful, sacred, and reciprocal relationship with the earth, showing gratitude through our ceremonies. The challenge for many to understand is that the earth itself is a living entity with a spirit, which gives her purpose, duties, and responsibilities. Knowing the earth is alive is a core truth, fundamental to having a sacred relationship with the earth. The spirit in each of our beings carries moral and ethical principles of what should be the basis of our human conduct. We understand these moral principles are natural laws. Natural laws are innate to all living beings. They are the invisible laws that govern all life. All living beings, including Mother Earth herself, are governed by natural laws. Much of what has been done to the earth in recent times has been those who have lacked understanding of natural law. We are related to all living beings within creation. Everything is interconnected and independent. Everything we need to live and to survive comes from the land. Nature is the most powerful teacher and healer who gives us all what we need to live and to thrive in life. At the end of the day, we determine who we are by what we do through our actions. Whatever we put into our circle sets the consequences of our actions and is returned multiplied. Natural laws and forces of nature are self-enforcing, more powerful than any human law we could possibly create. Every act of kindness sets a chain reaction with the powers of nature, and they are always in support of life. Our elders warned the people, be careful what you put into your circle. If you harm any living beings, nature, there will be a consequence which could be realized not only for oneself, but also one's children and their descendants. Indigenous peoples have known natural laws of living and surviving on the land. What humanity needs more to learn is the natural laws, the roles of conduct we must follow in defining a sustainable relationship with the earth and each other. Some examples of natural law. Don't take more than you need from the land to survive. If you take too much, your greed will increase. Treat all life with respect, and abundance will return to you. Show gratitude for whatever you receive from life, and life will return its blessings. Give back to the earth by returning her love, and make offerings a common practice of Indigenous peoples. And the earth will continue to sustain you. When we show gratitude is when we receive abundance. When we act according to our sacred teachings, we draw the same force that we have given from nature. Love draws more love. Acting with courage draws more courage into you. Life, like attracts like spiritually. There are 7 animals that come from the land to bring us the laws that act as the foundation. We must live and survive off the land. It is these animals that came to us in spirit through the blessing of the Great Spirit. You cannot live these laws limited to the mind. They are lived in practice. This is what is meant by living from the heart, listening from the heart, and speaking from the heart. When one is living these laws, one is rewarded with abundance and life. When you break these laws, there is a consequence that the negative lived out by the law of nature will be returned to you, multiplied. Any act that is lived out in opposition to the sacred laws will come with a price. There is a teaching that will come. This is choosing to learn the hard way. The hard way tends to bring pain. The good way reaps abundance and a good life. What is needed immediately is an educational awareness of natural laws, followed by the implementation framework through sustainability initiatives envisioned through a traditional Indigenous process, which create an alliance with nature. This is where Indigenous people can play a very significant and important role. Our biggest challenge as humanity is to shift from the negative to the positive, values that support the natural laws of the earth. As much as our original nations have been negatively impacted by genocide, there are those amongst our nations, our knowledge keepers, who have survived with their identity intact, their languages, their ceremonies, and knowledge of the laws that can become a foundation for a more sustainable world. I humbly propose working with Indigenous people and their knowledge keepers to help understand natural laws and lay down values that are in support of life. Indigenous knowledge keepers can help support humanity in coming to terms with our true identity to become true stewards of the land. By taking care of the land, we begin to learn the values and practice the behaviors required to maintain real success, founded on strong relationships with all life on the earth, including all peoples of the earth. Loving and taking care of the land ensures our survival as a species that chooses to be kind and to be able to be giving. Nature reciprocates generous behaviors. Our approach to seeking direction is to begin in a ceremonial context. Our ceremonies are not for show. The ceremonies of the pipe, the rattle, and the drum represent our sovereignty as a people. They are the gifts we carry, the tools we know how to use to connect in gratitude with the higher spiritual intelligence that enforces natural law. The knowledge keepers have maintained a connection to the spirit world, which holds the ultimate governance and intelligence. Their dreams and visions continue to guide us to live in balance with all of creation. At the present time, we still have a small number of our traditional knowledge keepers on hand to embark with young people to take on this task. Much of the knowledge they carry is embedded and coded in our original languages. There are many sacred lodges throughout the country where our ceremonies are being freely practiced, where our knowledge keepers are urgently working to help our young people heal from the trauma of genocide that has not yet ended, and sharing and teaching the people our ceremonial relations, traditions, and natural laws that ensure our survival for thousands and thousands of years. Many of these lodges have now opened to non-Indigenous people to share our understanding with the newcomers who have arrived on our homeland. The knowledge keepers of our nations need to be recognized for what they can contribute to this urgent issue of climate change. They can take much more active role in being a part of an educational process and other proposed solutions. We should begin with all young people of all cultures, preparing them and teaching them based on traditions how to have a sacred relationship with the earth. We can hold teaching gatherings and ceremonies, especially rites of passage, which connect them to the natural laws and their personal identity, role, and responsibilities of stewardship. An important element of our work as knowledge keepers is conducting the rites of passage for young men and young women entering adulthood in the spring. In their rite of passage, youth become connected to the land and the original mother and teacher for us all. They find their own identity and purpose by going into ancient ceremonies, guided and led by the grandmothers and the elders. A boy becomes a man, giving himself by fasting for 4 days, seeking a vision or a dream on the land that will give him his purpose and meaning in his life. It is true that all men must be initiated by woman to understand life's sacredness. And so a young man must seek a vision for himself on a vision quest and be initiated by Mother Earth. The young girls who have just begun to bleed for the first time are brought to the grandmothers, who provide sacred ceremony instruction for them on their responsibilities as sacred life givers and water carriers, and how to honor and take care of themselves as women. There needs to be an investment in Indigenous infrastructures where we create an environment for the true knowledge keepers, the ones who are fluent in their language and rooted in the ceremonies, to do their work together, seek direction in a ceremonial context, and offer vision and framework for climate solutions. Ancestral schools of knowledge conducted through alliances amongst our First Nation communities should be supported. They can offer an Indigenous perspective on having a sacred relationship with the land. Recently, we had a meeting with the president of the University of Manitoba and the dean of the environmental studies, who approached us to find a way for our traditional knowledge to become a significant component in educating the students in regards to the environment. I was opposed to the idea of indigenizing their institution. My position was that they support the model that we will develop when it comes to the sharing of our traditional knowledge. We want to reverse the trend of students going into their environment and rather bring them within our structures that have been designed and defined by our knowledge keepers. Our challenge is to remove ourselves from the colonial ways that still prevail. Decolonizing our minds must become a priority to our recovery. Our discussions with our partners are continuing. We need to fully support and establish our own places of higher learning. Our sharing of our knowledge has to be fully autonomous and led by the knowledge keepers of our nations. We are in an ideal position to establish our role of leadership through the sharing of our knowledge. We need to develop opportunities for all young people to experience our understanding, perspectives, and a way of life. It is only in exercising our true identity as a people who know and love the land, then we will all be liberated. Together, we can change this whole narrative of confrontation in this country. Change will never happen from the top. It always begins on the ground. We must promote a vision that is inclusive, representing the diversity of all approaches. It is important to leave a legacy for our children that can ensure that there can be a future. And this will require a change of heart, a heart that acts with kindness and respect. Thank you very much for giving me your respect and offering your attention as I shared my own words here this morning. Thank you.